Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Paley Center for Media. My name is Ron Simon, curator here of radio and television. Welcome to Tuesday night with Big Bang Theory. I'm sure most of you saw last night's episode on CBS. It had tremendous ratings, and we were left with the final image of Sheldon trying to go to sleep with Mickey Mouse ears, tormented by Goofy. But we'll see where Sheldon is today on Tuesday, and we all know that Big Bang Theory entertains both audiences and critics alike, and it's really a pleasure to have one of the stars of the show here tonight. Big Bang Theory is certainly a very smart comedy about smart geeks who are totally incompetent with social interaction. Tonight we're pleased to welcome the actor who plays the smartest and geekiest of those scientific geniuses, Jim Parsons. Jim's hilarious portrayal of the highly rational and socially inept Jim Parsons. Jim's portrayal has earned him an Emmy nomination and also has won him a Television Critics Association award. Entertainment Weekly has already declared that Jim Parsons is a comedy legend. As they said in EW, Parsons is doing something rare on network television, making intellectualism admirable, even heroic. So tonight we'll get to see and meet Jim and see how he does that, making brains something very sexy on television. Please welcome our moderator tonight, Michelle Kung.
Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Jim Parsons to the stage.
Thank you. That's quite an entrance, isn't it? Yeah. Like it's a game show. I want to say first off, thank you all for being here. It's so nice. I really love the chance to talk about the show. I enjoy talking about it, not just because I'm a self-concerned actor, but because I enjoy talking about the show. And so many surroundings, you don't get a chance. We were saying this morning. It's so quick. You have 5 minutes on Letterman, or you have 7 minutes, whatever, and nobody gets to ask. People who are actually watching the show don't get to ask you questions. I mean, God bless somebody like Letterman, but he's not really watching the show, you know. So, and that's fine. But anyway, that's all. Thank you.
And so I was wondering if you just wanted if we could start talking about this episode we just saw.
That's fine by me.
Because you guys wrapped recently.
Yes.
And so this was probably filmed about a month
Probably
ago?
about a month ago. How did it end? And I'm serious. How did it end?
It was just.
I saw we were in the cafeteria. He went to buy her he went to go get her coffee. And then what happened? She went with Raj, right?
Yes, and then Raj locked them out.
Oh, because she wanted to play a sex game.
Yes.
Okay. What was I doing?
You weren't there.
Did I ever show up again?
No.
That would explain why I don't remember it, though. That's really funny. Honest to God's truth. Okay.
You were probably, your character was probably a little too frustrated with Judy Greer's
character. No. I had one laundry room scene with Kaylee, with Penny.
Right.
Where I showed how disappointed I was, or whatever. Okay. So yes, where would you like to start with that?
Well, you guys actually have a great number of guest stars that come on, like Judy Greer. Like, you know, how does that work? Does basically the writers come to you and be like, whoops, we got this person coming in, introduce them?
Oh, well, no. Oh, yeah. I mean, we typically find some people, which surprises me, for as much as I work on the show, I don't have my ear to the pulse of what they're doing nearly as much as some other people. Like every once in a while, somebody else in the cast will be like, I heard Judy Greer's coming on. I'm like, from who? Who told you that? And if you don't hear it that way, you might hear it online. Nikki Fink might tell you. Or sometimes it's literally you open the script for the episode and go, look who's on, this week. So that's how that happens. And as far as how they get them, I think some of them are, a lot of them are probably just offers, like, would you like to do this or whatever. I know Mayim Bialik, though, who's going to be on the finale, TV's Blossom, she auditioned and apparently just knocked it out of the park, It was one small scene that I did with her, and I thought she was fantastic. But she was on audition. I don't think Judy was.
Okay. Do you think Sheldon is capable of of being in a romantic relationship?
I would assume in his own, yes, I know that he would be, I don't know anything, I'm not writing it, but I think that yes, he would be capable of that for sure. It's a lack of, of interest. It's a lack, I think, it's his lack of wanting to put energy towards that, you know, critical of others who he thinks waste energy there that should be focused elsewhere. And I've always said it would have to really take him by surprise, hit him over the head, whatever. And whether or not that's what's happening in our season finale when he meets Mayim, I doubt it, because that'd be a drastic change, and our team of writers is not known. They're known to say we do not want drastic change, actually. And I agree with them. I think it's beyond comforting. I think that for me as a TV viewer, when things I've been hooked into, you know, you're hooked into these characters as much as anything, for the most part, if you continually watch something. And some change is fun to watch. But a great deal for me of the joy of watching any TV character is the reactions and the way they are that you kind of come to rely upon. You know how they're going to react in a situation, and that's what's fun. You introduce them into a whatever situation, and you go, I know how they're going to, you know. So some change, but nothing too big. Right. I really strayed on your question, but go ahead.
Well, no, it's a good point, because it's the sort of thing where you'll see, like, you know, Sheldon doesn't like germs.
Right.
You know, and so you
Right.
always know how that is going to go.
Right.
But there's enough flexibility within the character that it's not just like a one-note person.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, one thing that always comes up is that I think there's such a great freedom, and maybe there's a great freedom in playing any character, but some of these characters specifically having a great deal to do with their vast intelligence and their field of study and their awkwardness in the world, especially like Sheldon can be so. Whereas that could seem to kind of box you into something, I think it opens up, though, for us a tremendous amount of freedom, because who are we to say at any point he wouldn't do that? Well, I don't know what he would do. You know what I mean? They say he'll do this, well, then I'm willing to try that. I think that he really might do that. You know, he's a genius. I don't know how somebody like that acts. He's a bit of a freak, so I don't know how, you know, any reaction is possible as far as that goes. And that's one of the most fun things about this whole process for 3 years now has been that going, if you say so, I'm willing to go with it too, you know.
Well, it definitely seems as if the writers are putting Sheldon in increasingly embarrassing situations, like especially this season. You know, there was one episode where you're in, like, you know, the ball court and you're just kind of like swimming around and like.
The ball court makes it sound so dignified. It is a pit, trust me. Yeah, well, you know, but that's once again what he's, you know, if you don't put limits on what he's capable of taking action for and feeling passion for, then he's limitless in where you can find him, you know. And one of the things we discussed this morning, we did an interview, for those who don't know, we did a completely separate of this, except it was sort of a get to know you for tonight too. But one of the things we talked about was that the ball pit episode was one of the times it really hit me on the head how lucky we are to have science as our basis that we're coming from as a show, because that just encompasses almost, if not everything. So if the writers or anybody else can think of something like a ball pit or whatever, it's like, wouldn't it be fun to see? We can almost inevitably, the writers can find a way to get us there. Like, well, they could be there, in this case, or the ball pit was because of, you know, I needed bigger molecules to work with to really visualize what I was trying to do, you know. And so that worked perfectly, you know. We started out with lima beans in the cafeteria scene, graduated to marbles, and well, of course we ended up in a ball pit, you know. And I admire their execution, their execution of a storyline, the structure. I'm just always amazed that the way they put it together. They work their asses off, they really do. They work so much harder than we do at times. You know, every once in a while we get a week off. And the reason we get a week off is so, those who don't know, a lot of you probably do know, but so they can catch up. You know, they don't stop writing. Yeah.
What have been some of the arcs that you've liked this season? Like, you know, personally, I thought it was genius when they brought on, like, Will Wheaton, and then the return of evil Will Wheaton.
Yeah. He's a perfect foil for Sheldon. You can probably pick this up just by knowing seeing Will Wheaton do something, but just to meet him, he is so. I always want to say the word innocuous, but that makes it sound like he doesn't make an impression. That's not true. But as far as there's nothing to dislike as a person, and so friendly and so warm and so giving, and so it makes such sense that of course that's an enemy for Sheldon. Now, you know, Sheldon doesn't hate him because he's nice as a person, but of course Sheldon bothers when he won't bother to feel passion or take the time to have a love interest or do something that, you know, like reproduce or whatever. No. Instead, he does find such time to relish this hatred of a star who disappointed him in an autograph line once, you know, and one of the nicest celebrities you could ever meet. So that's been fun. I've enjoyed the arc of the continuing Bazinga, you know. First time I heard that word, I was like, well, that's odd. And it's just been so fun to have that grow and become, you know, like a thing. You know, you wonder how, or I would wonder how, well, something like a tagline developed for a character. Well, there you go. There's one.
It's like I actually found something online earlier today called the Bazinga button, where if you go to the website, you can just hit with your mouse, you just hit the button over and over again, and you say Bazinga.
I make no money from that. None. Charming. Okay, go on. No, it's really cute, actually.
And you know, given how kind of like identified you are with this character, I was wondering if we could talk a bit about, you know, how you first came to it. Like, you know, what were your impressions, you know, when your agent sent you the script for this character who's... As much as anything, I simply took to the rhythm of his speech. I really liked the way he tried to communicate with other people. I really liked the convoluted, awkward way in which he tried to make a point. You know, it was a harrowing audition for that very reason, because it was so, you know, it gets easier as you do it a little bit, but it's not very naturalistic speak. And so it was hard to get ready for the audition, but I really worked at it because something in it connected, and not storyline, although I didn't have a problem with it, but I don't even remember what I thought about the whole pilot. I don't remember what I thought about any other character in it or whatever. I just simply knew there was something about the way this guy talked that I enjoyed and wanted to do, and felt that I didn't know what they were looking for exactly, but I really thought that I should be in a final group of 5 or whatever that they were considering. It sounds so conceited. I don't think it is. It's really just kind of knowing, you know, let me say the other side of that coin is that this is probably the 20th pilot I'd gone in for that year. And, you know, most of those were, I could maybe make that fit. Yeah, I could see one. I could do that, you know. So to find one, that's how rare it is. You know, it was 1 out of 20 that you looked at and went, yes, this I can see. And luckily they did too. Because it's like up to that point you had been auditioning, you had bit parts in like various TV shows.
Yeah.
And
I should have set it up. I really couldn't have set it up, though. I don't remember exactly what the hell happened. Apparently they were trying to get married, and she wanted to get married there. That was their very first TV show I ever did.
Not bad company to be in.
It was wonderful company.
Very first show.
Not only that, though, when I heard they were going to use this clip, it was the first time I've seen it, obviously. I was stunned. But Julie Bowen and John Slattery were, first off, I was like, oh, you know what's funny? We're all on TV shows right now, which is really just funny, or I guess. But they were both so... And now I see this more than I did whenever that was, 2002, so 8 years ago. They were so unnecessarily nice and encouraging. Like, Julie was taking me aside, John says he thinks you're great. He says, watch him, he's gonna do things. And I was like, oh, really? And, you know, and she was having me back to her trailer to talk. It was just so, you know, I'm so glad that this came up this way, because I had kind of forgotten about that. And I think that I'm nice to people that are on our set. I'm also very concerned about learning my own stuff, so sometimes I'm probably not as talkative as I could be. And boy, they were. And it made me feel all the different for it, you know. And I have very long hair for me. But anyway.
Do you find that you've kind of reached a point where like other actors are kind of coming to you for advice now on like how to get their career started or acting tips?
Some. It's a really, really hard issue, I think. because everybody's path is so particular, and there's no roadmap that's completely laid in stone for it. The only consistent thing I ever say is if you want to do it, just keep doing it. And because that's the only thing I can think of that, because like, what do you can tell somebody how you did it. I went to undergrad, then I went to grad school, and then I did a showcase, and I got well, I mean, this is really a particular path, and I had to take out loans. So consistency in your effort is what I always say as far, you must find a way to do the work, because you're only going to learn by doing the work. Each experience, good and bad, offers reams of material for your subconscious as you move on. That was very deep.
And earlier today, we were talking about how you've actually just signed on for your first film role since starting The Big Bang Theory.
I'm going to do a small part in a movie called The Big Year. It's about people who go bird watching, and to have a big year is to spot as many species as you can. For those who don't know, I had no idea. And I will be a bird watcher who runs a blog about bird watching. I'm sure it's more interesting than that.
But when you were starting out, like, was it the sort of thing where you had kind of this career path that you were thinking that you wanted to follow? Okay.
No, not at all. I really didn't. I'd grown up doing tons of theater in Houston and everything, and I was just talking about this today. No, I just knew, and it all relates in the way, like I talked about how I felt when I read Sheldon, the character. Whatever the medium, theater, television, film, whatever it is, that's what it always is. More than the tone of the film, more than the tone of the play, whatever it is there somebody in, I do it all the time still. When they read this script to see if you're interested or whatever, and it's like, it's sometimes hard to read because you get halfway through it and you're like, I've got other things to do. And some people are like, well, if you don't care for it, you could stop reading at a certain point. My problem is I don't know when the character I'm supposed to play is going to enter. And so I could be reading something going, I don't know. And suddenly this character will pop up, then I'm like, I can totally do this. I should be saying this, or I should be considered. And that's why I don't think I didn't have a path as far as where should I go. I should be doing TV. Where's the guy to play, And that's what I'm still going for.
And if in terms of character development, you're looking for these characters. How much more do you think Sheldon has to grow? Are you still discovering
in one way it's
new
infinite,
things?
Yeah. And in one way it's I haven't made it my business. I've never suggested things to the writers. They've never asked me either. They will ask weird questions like, do you know how to play the recorder? I did in elementary school. The only one they asked me that never came to fruition was, can you ride a unicycle? I was like, no, but I'd be willing to learn. And everybody around me was like, that's so dangerous. I was like, well, I'm assuming they'd put mats around me and stuff, but that's exactly the kind of injury 50 years from now. I was like, we were doing Big Bang, and I fell and hit my neck, and I've never been the same. I've been on Vicodin ever since. What were you asking me? What was it really?
How do you kind of see Sheldon's character growing?
I don't know. And this is what I was going to say, is because this I also talked about with somebody today, was the fact of dealing with the character unfolding on this show. Well, first off, this speaks to the trust I have in these writers. But there's a certain aspect, too, of I don't want to step in the way of something wonderful happening. And in some ways, it's hard to relinquish that control. It's like, oh, wouldn't it be fun if... And there's nothing wrong with me suggesting that, and maybe at some point I will suggest something, but at the same time, I love what they're coming up with, and even if I had a good idea, I don't want my good idea to derail something even better that was being worked on. I don't want to get in their ear and go, oh, he'd rather be doing more of, no, you keep doing what you're doing. Because what I enjoy doing more than anything is responding to what they give and going, I think I can make this work, or whatever, or I would have never thought of that. And that's probably the biggest one of all. I would have never thought of A, B, C, and D. And that goes for more than just this role. That goes for everything.
Do you think it's possible for them to come up with something that is just so outrageous that you're just like,
Probably not.
Yeah.
I mean, like what, what would they do that you're allowed to do on primetime television? Because immediately I go there, it's like nudity, you know. But I've been naked in a play, which is different, if not worse. Yeah, I can't think of anything. I can't think of anything. You know, we're very lucky. Chuck Lorre is there may be people, I'm sure there are people who can run 22 minutes of television just as well in their own way, but you're not going to find somebody doing it better. You're not going to find somebody doing it more secure. His vision is so secure. And what it does, the reason I bring it up is because there's no going out too far on a limb for both the writers or us as actors or whatever. It's a safe environment, not in the way of going nobody can see what you're doing, but in the way of he won't let it get too far to harm the story. He won't let things stray too far from what the honest thing of the character is. So you are very free to experiment and really go for it, and because they'll say, that's funny, and it's also too far. Let's bring back to whatever, you know. And there's no price you can put on that kind of safety. You know, you're free to experiment, which is what you need to be for the most part. Although some people get results under very dictatorial, frightening circumstances. So this is his way of doing business, I guess. You know,
it's a friendlier
and so I'm
way.
responding to it.
Right.
Yes.
And so, and it also, you know, now that it's the third season, I'm sure that you have a much better friendlier rapport with like your co-stars, and you feel much more free in terms of, you know, working with them. And
yeah, it's been a good situation from day one. So it has increased, but we didn't have some you know, watershed moment where it's like, oh, now we're getting along, or now we can talk. That didn't really happen. It's gotten easier, but it's been a gradual, very natural thing.
Okay, so I think we're going to open up to the audience and take some questions if we want to. I think we have 2 microphones set up, so right up there.
It's like being on Donahue.
Hello. Hi.
Hi.
You're great in the show. The
Thank
show's
you.
terrific. My question is, as an actor, I mean, it's hard enough to learn those lines every week. Is it really difficult to learn all of this sort of scientific jargon and comic book jargon that your character has to sort of spill out constantly? And do you actually memorize that, or do you use cues or prompters
It's all memorized.
Wow.
And thank you.
You are good.
Well, you know what's funny though? We work a 5-day week, and it's very common for a show. Well, shows tape all over the place, but when we tape on a Tuesday night, and when I first heard we were going to tape on a Tuesday night, coming from theater, I thought, oh, that sucks. Who goes to a show on a Tuesday night? You know, that's, you know, blue hairs or whatever. That's what we used to say in the theater. I don't mean it insulting, although it is, isn't it? Anyway. Sorry, backtrack. I just thought it'd be hard to get a good audience for that night. And not only is it not, it's not theater, it's television, and it's different. And we get all sorts of people who've come to town to do, like they're on vacation and they come to our show that night, or we have regulars, whatever. But what saved me completely on exactly your point, because now I get to rehearse Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday I don't have to be at work. And what sucks is I don't really get a weekend, but I lock myself basically in my house, and that's what I do all weekend is memorize. Sometimes it's a lighter episode and it's easier than others, you know. Sometimes it's awful and you want to shoot yourself. But, you know, that's the chance to get it done, and that's why. The hardest part after that is I don't understand a lot of, you know, like, even the simplest pop culture references. If we didn't have Wikipedia and YouTube, I could not do this part 30 years ago. I really couldn't. You know, we were just talking the other day, me and somebody, about there's something from Star Wars which I saw. He goes, it's a trap. And I was like, you know, the hell is that? And so they send me a YouTube clip with it. Like, here he is, Colonel Akbar, whatever. It's a trap. And but, you know, so I use it for that. A lot of, like, the Wheaton, I had to look up the William Shatner because I've never seen any of the Star Trek movies, you know. And then... I want to alienate the Star Trek. I'm going to alienate everybody tonight. But I hadn't, you know, and there's the acting. But those are on par with the science, which is really, like, Wikipedia and things like that have been really helpful, where I'm like, please just let me get enough of this so I know why the hell I'm bringing it up. You know, I'm never going to understand the whole point, which is kind of the point of these characters, which Chuck and Bill were preaching from the beginning of the show. They were like, they're not, well, yes, they're nerdy, but they're geniuses. These are minds who are doing things that we're not capable of wrapping our heads, and boy, is it true, you know. I've learned a couple of terms for the crossword puzzle that's been very helpful. And the easiest ones, like one I've used several times is race in an H.G. Wells novel. And I'm like, oh, like a race in H.G. Until I learned, no, it's a race of creatures, the Eloi, E-L-O-I, which apparently is very handy in crosswords. And the other one is something being it's out of your understanding. It's out of your ken, K-E-N. Sheldon says that, apparently. I don't. But now I do. Now I know how to use it.
So what's it like when you guys go to, like, you know, Comic-Con, where you guys always have panels, but, you know, those are very intense fans.
And yes, but in the most warm, we have, maybe everybody who does a show feels like this, although I can't imagine it's completely true. I would imagine just for even dramas, it's different than it is for, like, a sitcom. But we have the sweetest, warmest fans, and the Comic-Con, you know, when we first went to Comic-Con 3 years ago, right before we went, I read an article in a paper about how there were some complaints that Comic-Con was being, I guess, misused in some way, like, I don't know, what's a good example? Like, what the hell is such and such movie doing here? And
like
it was
Transformers, you know,
well, no, but even further afield, almost like a Merchant Ivory thing, or it wasn't, but, you know, of that nature, where I looked and was like, oh, you're right, what the hell are they doing at Comic-Con? But it's a good marketing tool. And I thought, oh, are they going to look at us like, yeah, take it, just marketing here? Then we went to the panel, and they watched a clip reel of our show beforehand. And so first off, it was weird to watch a TV show in a big group of people, as you just did. You don't normally do that. You're normally at home with a small group. And secondly, the way they were reacting to the clips, I was like, oh, it's so stupid, but we're representing a lot of the people here, you know. And not just I don't mean in a nerdy, geeky way, but in that way, like, I remember one clip in particular where there's a knock at the door, Leonard thinks somebody broke in, and he picks up a lightsaber from his bedside. And I was like, these are the people that would have a lightsaber next, or they might, you know. And I had never judged it as, oh, that's outlandish before. I just hadn't thought about it at that level. And then I realized we did belong at Comic-Con. And now we'll go back for our third time this year. And as opposed to being like, oh, what's going to happen? I'm very excited. It's the sweetest. It's very nice. Kaylee sometimes, I think, gets scared. But it's hard to be a girl at Comic-Con if you're not dressed up as Leia, you know.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Questions? Oh, right there.
Along the lines of the Comic-Con and the fans, can you tell us an interesting story about a fan reaction? Somebody come up to you on the street, airport, anywhere?
They're all interesting in their own way. And I mean that in a very positive way. Oh, God, is there anything really weird that's happened? The weirdest, okay, this one happened. I was walking in LA, and I was walking across the street. I do a lot of walking in LA because I lived in New York and I'm a freak. And I was walking across the street, and major intersection, Fairfax and Melrose. If you don't know it, it's okay, it's major. And I'm walking across, suddenly there's a honk, 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 and I'm like, oh. And I look back frightened or whatever. On some blog, I told some people about it, and on some blog sometime later, this woman had, I don't know if it was on a Facebook page that I don't run or what, but this woman said, I just want to apologize. I tried to say I love your show. I was in a red car, I honked at you at Fairfax and Melrose. I scared you to death, and I'm really sorry. So that's the weirdest one. That's like, and that's like one of those just missed people that happens on Craigslist almost, you know? The fact that she actually got the message to me. If you're here, stand up. No, that was weird. And it scared the crap out of me. It made me very angry. She was like, who honks at somebody? I could have been run over, you know? But, or at least thrown my neck out.
Right there?
Right here?
Yeah.
You have to keep leading this.
I'm just going from side to
Okay.
side.
You're doing great. I just wanted to tell you I'm not going to take charge.
At first, I'd like to say you're a comic genius.
Oh,
You are a comic
my
genius.
mother.
You can't memorize those lines and deliver them like that and not be a comic genius. I'd like to ask you, who were your idols growing up, or if you had to meet someone today
Oh,
in your business or work with them, who would it be
no,
that you would be in awe of?
Yeah. You'd think I'd be better at this because it's not the first time it's been asked of me, but it's really hard for some reason. I grew up watching so many sitcoms. You know, they were rerun when that was my first interest, and the reason I say that is because in some ways, many sitcoms in general are my idol. Very specifically, two people that come up. One I still remember the feeling of, and one I'm confused by. Although I still get it, and that sounds bad. I'll just say it. I was obsessed with Mork from Mork and Mindy. This is a slightly confusing one for me. Like, I had like a full-on birthday party where suspenders, everything. And I love Robin Williams. I don't know what the hell was so appealing about Mork and Mindy. But I really took to it. So in a weird subconscious way, I know that Robin Williams from back then is somewhere in there. The other one that I can just remember how I felt exactly was watching reruns of Three's Company with John Ritter. I didn't even look at that and think that's what I want to do or whatever. It was just an innate understanding of what was going on there. I totally got on some level in my young age what was happening there. And the other one I always think of, because I still love it, is I was I think too young to be so taken with the Mary Tyler Moore Show reruns. And I still am, but now what I got back then that, I don't think I was precocious, but there was something I was identifying with, the structure to that show and the depth of emotion in a scene in the middle of all that comedy, it's rare that a show's able to do that, but there was something about the rhythm of that. There was something about the whatever that's just, I don't know. It
stayed with you.
It stayed with me, and it informed me, and it doesn't die. There, you know what I mean? That doesn't change. The essential human rhythm of conversation relating to each other that funny comes out of. That just highlighted that. As far as who to work with, the one I always say is Betty White, but Mary Tyler Moore, and she'd be a great Meemaw on the show. If you see her, tell her, but you can't get her lately because she's on everything.
Right. Well, that means that she's right around the corner. She'll be right around the corner.
Yeah, apparently she's easy right now. You're right. I have pitched from day one somebody whose humor I really get and always understood from friends was, I want Lisa Kudrow to play some relation to Penny in some way. I think it's such an easy fit. Warner Brothers did Friends. I've talked to the head of Warner Brothers Television. Wouldn't Lisa Kudrow be great? She is a great gal. Yeah, nobody's ever listening to me. She's not there. Or maybe they've tried and I don't know. And then I don't know, that's just the TV realm of things. So I hope that's sort of a satisfying answer, in a way. Hi. I didn't see y'all earlier.
Right there.
I was wondering what the best and worst part of your job is.
The best and worst part? I'll try and think of the worst first, because it's not really, there's really nothing terribly unpleasant about it. The worst part of my job is, and it's a good part, because it's a wonderful, obviously I enjoy this, or I wouldn't have picked this type of life, but is the amount of things that I do, including an event like tonight, where I don't know what the hell's going to happen. And it's like that every time we tape a show, and it's like that every time I go on a talk show, and it's like that almost everything I do is if it got, I always think, well, if they canceled it, that'd be okay too. And I mean that for every taping we do. I'm like, on Tuesday night, I'm like, if the lights went out and we had to postpone, that'd be fine. Because there is this anxiety that, this is the worst part, there's this anxiety that rides around. And you know, I'm trying to come to terms with it, because the frightening thing is that may be my life force. So the thing that keeps me going may be the thing that gives me gas. The best part is really hard to name, because, you know, even the worst part has its charms, not gas. But the best, but it's all good. And I don't know. The only thing I'll throw out, and part of it is because well, this is a perfect relation to it. And if you have heard me talk about this, I'm sorry, because I'm doing Martha Stewart on Thursday, and I'm doing it with my mother, because it's the Mother's Day special. And I'm glad you think it's sweet, and I hope it turns out really sweet. I'm a little scared. That, I recently did a segment on Sesame Street, and I got to bring my nephew to it with me, who's 4 years old, and he got to meet Elmo and Abby Cadabby. And it's that part that's so incidental. It's such a side way it has nothing to do with the meat of it. I guess it's perks. And I don't think of them. They just kind of pop up and they're there. And like with my nephew, the joy, you know, of bringing him there, it makes me very emotional. Anyway, so that's one of the best parts. Oh, please.
Hi. This is
Hello.
actually a question from way up here.
Yes, I see
This
you.
is actually a question from someone listening to the live tweets in the Netherlands for you.
Really?
Really.
Right now?
Right now.
Oh, this is freaky.
And his Twitter name is Nerdy Genius.
Oh,
and
really?
he would like to know, they haven't explored the friendship of Sheldon Raj lately. What's your opinion on that? Do you think their friendship should be explored again?
Well, yes. First and foremost, because one of the things that we have going for us that I think any show with writers concerned about their characters have going for us is that they develop them to such a degree, and you get more and more depth, that it becomes a situation of there's not an unfun pairing to be had. You know what I mean? So for that reason alone, I think you can't go wrong. You can only explore a different area. Sheldon and Raj are very... You know, what am I answering again? I mean, like, am I pitching ideas for what I think they should do? I don't know. They did some work together, and yeah, that didn't go well. But it was fun, you know. I'm trying to separate from Raj and Kunal, because Kunal is such a wonderful person, to riff on him for a second. He's the most gracious, you know, because he doesn't speak to women and whatever, he has so much work to do where he never talks, where he's just sitting there. And, you know, you could really learn to bitch as a human being by having to sit there that long. And he is the nicest, gracious, unbitching, positive energied person you've ever met. Maybe a little wild for my taste, but you know, that's different. And so I guess I bring that up because I love working with him, and the one-on-one stuff is great too. So, oh, hi Netherlands. That was not the best answer I've given. Anyway.
Right down here.
Back to our country.
Hi. One of my favorite episodes was the Christmas episode that Penny gave you.
It's one of the best things they've ever done. It was a brilliant idea.
Have the writers tried, especially now because he recently announced that he's retiring, have they tried to get him on the
Leonard
show?
Nimoy?
Or
I don't know. I really don't know the answer to that question, if they've actually made an active effort or not. Back to our, do you know your guest stars? No, not till they show up. I'll tell you something very funny. When the napkin, they were like, you know what? We should try and send these napkins to Leonard Nimoy and see if he'd sign them, and we could tell him we'll auction it off. And they did, afterwards. So they sent him 2 napkins in case he messed up or whatever. He sent them back. One of them signed, the other one not signed, and we just thought, how funny, Nope, I got it right. I won't be signing 2. Which, I did my job, so we're done with 1 take. I don't know, that would be great. When he had Stan Lee on, though, we did introduce the fact that Sheldon has a restraining order, or Leonard Nimoy has one against Sheldon for that. So I don't know that I would actually get to work with him if he came on, or it would be quite a scene. I don't know. That would be lovely. Like I said, I didn't grow up. I still haven't watched Star Trek very much, but I have talked so much about it and about him in the past 3 years. And I know how important he is, and so many people who watch our show are so fond of him that for that reason alone, I would love it if we could, it'd be somebody's dream come true. Mine too, Leonard, mine too. I just, you know what I'm saying.
Like, that's the fun part about the show. It's like they have so many people that come on as themselves.
Yeah.
Simply because of that science fiction element. Like,
Yeah.
you guys have all the Battlestar Galactica people will come on as
Yeah.
themselves.
We recently got cookies from Whoopi Goldberg. She said, "Oh, you make me laugh." And it was after production had wrapped, and so they sent us a picture of the cookies and a picture of the note, which is as much as they could do when you're not there. And I was like, when did Whoopi start watching our show? I mean, great, but what? And I talked to Simon, who plays Wallowitz. We talk all the time, and I was like, why did you think Whoopi Goldberg sent us cookies? He goes, I asked Will Wheaton in that episode, Whoopi Goldberg, did you ever hit that? I was like, oh, we made a direct sexual reference to Whoopi Goldberg. So I think that means Whoopi's still not completely watching the show. Somebody said, did you hear what they said about you on Big Bang? Fine, no press is bad press. It's probably not true. Anyway.
How about right down here?
Sheldon and Leonard have a roommate agreement.
Yes.
What would you put in a roommate agreement if you had one?
In
with your
real life?
roommate? In real life, yes.
Coming from some experience in roommate situations, I think it's very important that you would lay down where you're going to put your checks every month for the landlord. Like, are they going to go on this counter here, and when are they going? I speak of that because I was always the one late paying my rent. It's living on unemployment in New York, it's hard. But I always paid my late fees with it, and the landlord summarily said I was not welcome back. The other 2 were. They said specifically that Jim's not welcome to come back. Okay, thank you, fine. So I would lay that down, although you may not be able to get your rent in on time anyway. What are other important things? The common area should probably be kept under some sort of regulated, cleanliness, or at least some sort of order, I speak to that too. I was not always the nicest with that, Food doesn't need to be left out as long as it sometimes gets left out, And then other things in there, like, I don't think that a thermostat needs to be regulated. I really don't. I think you can fight that on a day-to-day basis, And people do, But we have, we haven't shown. There's an episode coming up. It's the start of what's going to be a flashback episode in a couple of weeks where you're going to see, this is so funny. You have no idea that this is coming. I really was thinking, I thought this episode had aired, which is why we're talking about this. No, there's a flashback episode coming where you see how all the guys met, how Leonard came to live in the apartment or whatever, and the creation of the roommate agreement. And it starts, I don't know, this isn't giving too much away, it starts over an absolute bitch fest fight over the setting of the thermostat. And we're talking the difference of like 2 degrees. And one of the lines in there was Leonard goes, oh, go to hell and set their thermostat. And Sheldon says, it's 72 degrees, I'm already there. I don't think other than rent and the common area, I think much needs regulating, unless you have bathroom issues, but you could put in an amendment later, once you knew the slob you were living with,
Was the, speaking of the origin story, like, was that kind of how you had seen it play in your head? Like, when creating the character?
I hadn't thought about it. I swear to God, I hadn't thought about it. And I used to feel guilty about this as an actor, like, oh, I should be creating more of a backstory. Well, not really. If it's the irritating old saying, if it's not on the stage, or if it's not on the page, it isn't on the stage, and that's irritating. But there is some truth to it in that I am what they say I am. Sheldon is what he says he is, and he is revealing himself in good time. And, I don't find certain, I have yet to come, knock on wood, in 3 years, I've yet to come across information that we're revealing where I'm like, well, that changes everything from the past 3. No, it doesn't. It's not like, well, I wouldn't have ever picked up this tick if I didn't know, whatever. Right. I don't do that. Why did I do that? So I guess what I'm saying is, and maybe that's part of it too. I'm leaving myself open to the revelation of new material. It doesn't go on, it doesn't jive with what I was thinking. I wasn't thinking about that. I was only thinking about what we're doing here and right now. And, or maybe I'm lazy.
Right there? Sure. I'm like,
I was wondering, since the writers have an unusually large grasp on science and its constituents, is there ever a time when they tell you you're going to say something and you are like, wow, that's interesting, or that's cool to know, what's this about?
Probably. Yeah, all of it's interesting to a degree. Like, I didn't know that there was a Hadron Collider. I'd heard of that, but I didn't know where that was. It's in Switzerland. And things like that. But I'll be honest, a lot of it I don't know. I hate to think I'm an uncurious being. A lot of it I couldn't even begin to understand. Like, we have a physicist who we employ, who works at UCLA and now on our show as well, and he comes up with these, I guess they'll ask him, like, we need Sheldon to mention a theory of blah, 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 whatever, that would be a good thing to mention regarding a breakup of Leonard and Penny. And he'll be like, and try this. He's back there writing on or telling them what to write on the whiteboards behind us, theories that I don't know. Apparently there's sometimes inside jokes in them. Who the hell knows? But it's so, what I will say though, is that it's so nice to have someone to blame if something was wrong, but more importantly, that's not really come up. It's as far as I know, it's all right. We just did a story in the New York Times about, I'm not sure what it was about exactly, but it was something to do with, science and things like that. And I talked.
Scientists being happy about the show.
That was the strangest interview I've ever done. I'll throw that in for the fun of it. It was great, but it was definitely the science writer that had come.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, do you come into contact with other science people who automatically assume that
we know things?
Yeah, that you
they
know
don't say
things.
that if they think it. They really don't.
Mm-hmm.
I get asked that a lot. Do people think that you? And sometimes people ask, did you have some science background or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, no, and they sometimes they're a little surprised, but in that regard, it's just like memorizing anything else. Those kids on Grey's Anatomy weren't doctors before they were, So no, I haven't dealt with that. But we do get a lot of people in the science field. We get a lot of people married to people in the science field who are like, oh my Lord, you're just like, whoever. And I always think that's really cute. One thing that I noticed very early on is people are very quick to go, I'm so much like Leonard, or, I'm so, my friend, I'm like Wallowitz a little bit. No one's like Sheldon. And only people who are like Sheldon are when people point at them and go, he's just like Sheldon. So, and I understand a certain aversion.
Right over there.
I thought the episodes with Laurie Metcalf as your mother were fabulous.
Thank you. I love her. How
they-
wonderful is she? I mean,
Do you know if there's any plans for her to come back and
I bet you
do
there's
some
nothing
guest
set in
stars?
stone. Or there could be, and I wouldn't know it yet. But I bet you you know, a lot of the guest stars we've gotten, we've been so lucky with because they're so good, which means they're also so in demand, you know. I mean, Christine Baranski's on The Good Wife. Laurie Metcalf's always doing something. I think she just closed a play in New York, you know. So it's also a matter of catch when catch can as far as they go. Like, is she available and is this going to work, you know? Because they're laying those stories out far enough in advance that they're just trying to collide those times. That being said, there's tons of behind-the-scene work going on that I obviously don't know about, and they maybe are already working with, can you keep February open or whatever. I hope they do, because, you know, it's the kind of thing, both the mothers, throughout the run, and I've never thought of this or said this before, but at least one appearance a year. You really, you know, in all seriousness, and they're not going to disappoint, you know. You're not going to go wrong by getting them back, so go ahead and go for it. Like Judy Greer is a good example of somebody who, that's not a recurring character, but even if it were, it'd be another one that she's doing a million things, you know. But that's fantastic. It never ceases to surprise me. It's like, oh, they want to come to our show? You know, and even when we get more viewers and things are going well, you still feel that seed of, but it's our show. You want to come do it? You know? Judy Greer's coming to dinner, whatever, you know. And it's very exciting, so.
Right down there.
I think you could probably stay on stage and read the white pages of the New York phone book and be brilliant.
Oh. You missed everybody walking out up there.
Putting that aside, if you could put Sheldon Cooper on hold for a little while, what dramatic character would you like to play on Broadway?
Oh, boy. Well, I'm trying to think of something that's already created, and that's what's hard, trying to think of something that's already out there, because I'd love to also launch something new, you know? I would love to, and I've started saying this in my little head a while ago, going, I'd love to talk to a writer and say, like, you know, what are you writing, and do you need somebody? Can I help put butts in seats yet? Have we gotten to that level? You know, because that's what it seems like it is so much of the time. And I really would love to help somebody launch something that I was passionate about. Specific character and stuff, that's hard. I was really drawn when I was doing theater to a lot of the darker comedies. I really loved the absurd stylings of, say, like a Charles Busch. I did my showcase after school. You do these little scenes and the agents come, hopefully, and then maybe you get one. But I did one of my scenes was from when Alan Ball was writing for the stage, and that kind of, 6 Feet Under is an excellent example of exactly what he was doing then. You know, it's charming and it's kind of funny and it's a little creepy and it's, you know, and it was right up my alley. I really enjoy writing that line of, is that funny? Yes, it's funny. No, it's not. You know. So I don't know. I'm sorry I'm not naming anything specific. I studied so much Shakespeare in school, and it's funny. I always thought, well, I won't be doing that again. Even though I enjoyed it, I thought, but now more and more, I really miss it, and I would happily do something in Shakespeare again. You know, I guess there's always Shakespeare in the park. Yeah. Several parks, all across country. So I don't know. But it's funny you bring it up, because I was just talking today how eager I would be to come and do something in New York. You know, the fitting it into the summer schedule is where that's the key. You know, you've got this little the blessing of TV is that you have consistent work. Maybe this is one of the downsides, is wanting to do something else, and you've got to fit it in this little window. But it's done all the time, so there, it will be done.
Well, unfortunately, that is all the time that we have this evening.
Thank you all.
So,
thank you very much. Thank you.